Welcome to the latest episode of Trojans Wired, the podcast, which is an in-house production of the website Trojans Wire. We are part of the College Wire Network. Back at you with our USC women's basketball show and USC women's basketball analyst Cece Clay, who has her YouTube channel, Let's Talk USC Women's Basketball. Hope you're watching her videos. Hope that you're liking them. Hope that you're subscribing to the channel, and then you're sharing the videos with friends. And so, CC, we start off just a brief bit. People want that Ohio State preview. We're going to get to that, of course, but we're going to start in chronological order. We first deal with the game we just had. Wisconsin, Trojans win by 22. They take care of business, routine win, like not a lot of stress. That's what the doctor ordered. Your main thoughts about the win over Wisconsin?
Yeah, I thought load management was important during this game. So it was important for us to get the lead so we could rest our starters and have them be rested for the Ohio State game Saturday, because that's going to be a lot of motion on the court Saturday. So, and I thought that our bench players played really well. They played, let me see, I think it was, they played 33 minutes that entire game. And they did really well during that game. So I was really impressed with what they did. I was surprised that Ju sat for as long as she did, but I'm really happy that she did, for load management, because I'm sure it's needed. It's interesting because the bench players came on and they were really efficient. They played a really efficient game. So I'm hoping that as we build into March, that we're starting to get our rotations a lot better when it comes to our bench players and being able to use them in a more effective way.
Well, since you brought up the bench minutes and the overall allocation of minutes, let's just follow up on that point while we're talking about it. Three different USC reserves played at least 20 minutes in this game. The overall numbers, the starters, there are 200 minutes in a game, of course. 5 players have to be on court at all times. It's a 40-minute game, so that's 200 minutes. The ultimate total was 117 minutes for the starters, 83 minutes for that bench. That's a great number. As you said, resting the starters for Ohio State. And it's not just that you want them to rest for Ohio State. It's also something that you talked about, CC, on recent shows. It's that USC's in the middle of a lot of games packed together. Instead of a 3 or 4 day break between games, there are just 2 days off, and part of that is travel from Madison, Wisconsin, back to Los Angeles. So Lindsey Gottlieb definitely, she knew she had to give the starters a lighter journey against Wisconsin, and she did a magnificent job. I mean, not just Juju playing 26, but Kiki Iriafen only 24, Rhea Marshall only 17. A lot of fuel should be in the tank for that Ohio State game, and I'm very impressed by how Lindsey Gottlieb was able to evenly distribute these minutes.
Yeah, and I was impressed too. And like I said, I was impressed by how the bench came on and they played well. Kennedy Smith played, well, she's a starter, but she played 29 minutes. But Kaylee Heckel played 21 minutes. And Avery played 22 minutes, and they were very efficient. Like Avery Howell, her EFG was 75%. Kaylee Heckles was 57.1. Everybody kept the turnovers low. There was only 7 turnovers the entire game. Just a real good game, efficient wise, for this team. So I was really, really happy to see that the bench came in and did what they were supposed to do, allowing our starters to rest.
All right. Ohio State in just a bit, but before that, Cece, you have a new YouTube video out, and you broke down the USC offense and what you see going on, and just some general concepts. Give us kind of a snippet, a taste of the larger analysis you provided over on your YouTube channel, Let's Talk USC Women's Basketball.
Yeah, if you haven't checked out that video, please go check it out, because I really broke down what the pro style shapes with Reed's offense is. And basically it's spacing, it's particularly spacing, and shapes refers to spots. So this offense doesn't have a lot of movement in it. It's like players are set up in their particular shapes or spots. And that could be a 5-out, a 4-1, or a 3-2. And then the primary ball handler or the superstar player is the main playmaker who kind of dictates what that offense does. So and they like to do a lot of dribble drive, a lot of pick and rolls, and a lot of ISO. So, I thought it was really interesting once I really did research that offense and break it down. But what I thought was even more interesting was when you look at this offense, it explains a lot maybe why there's some inefficiencies with some of the players. Because when you have an offense like this, like last year with Juju and the Nerds, this offense really worked because you had another playmaker alongside Juju, and which was Mackenzie Forbes, and she was a great 3-point shooter. And then you had your favorite person, Caleb Padilla, who was also a sniper and a 3-point shooter, and all of them had great IQ. So that pro style shapes with Reed's offense was very effective because they really knew how to play off one another, and they knew how to shoot the 3-point shot. And Mackenzie could drive, dribble drive as well. This year, they don't have playmakers like they did last year. So what happens is now we're an easy team to scout because of that pro style shapes with Reed offense. We're an easy team to scout because if the ball's in Juju's hands and you double her and you don't have any movement because you're kind of waiting to see what Juju is going to do, it makes it harder for our team to be efficient and open up into their spaces and spots. So, when I look at when I talked about the pro style motion offense on that video too, and I showed Denver, I showed Denver and the Joker how he's the leader of that offense, but it's a team oriented offense, and he still cooks with 30 points a game regularly, but that team has a lot of motion in it, and I just think with the players we have now, and with the defenses scouting us the way they do, or other teams scouting us the way that they do, we need to have a little bit more motion in our offense. And it's funny because you look at an offense like Stanford and Tara Vanderveer, how she used to always run the triangle offense. That was her old school triangle offense. And then in 2016, 2017, she decided to move away from that and move to a Princeton set because she wanted to maximize her players, and the triangle fit didn't fit that offense anymore. Now, I'm not saying this offense doesn't fit our team. I'm just saying that sometimes we have to look at other ways to maximize all the players on our team to get the best out of them.
A natural question which arises, CC, in light of what you're saying, there's a certain concept, and it's not necessarily about motion, but it's more about spots on the floor. As much as Lindsey Gottlieb might, value a certain structure, a certain way of doing things on offense, you also have to think as a season moves along, like you don't have the full playbook at the start, and of course with a lot of freshmen on the bench, you're slowly integrating those freshmen into the flow of the season. And of course, Kennedy Smith's a starter, so it's not just the freshmen aren't just on the bench. You have a freshman starter as well. You got to think, CC, Lindsey Gottlieb's been saving up for Ohio State, UCLA, these big games. Now, you aren't Lindsey Gottlieb, but if you were, or at least trying to process the game the way Lindsey does, what do you think is that little tweak that Kevin McGuff and Ohio State have not seen on film that you think USC can unleash Saturday in the Galen Center?
Now, it's going to be a good game because they're both transition teams, and they're both really fast. So if we can get out in transition, then there might not have to be that many tweaks. But if Ohio State does what they do and they press really well and they slow our offensive strategy down, then I think Lindsay's got some tricks in her bag to run some different sets that are going to throw Ohio State off because, as she said when we had our dialogue, they're always tweaking the offenses, adding more and allowing the freshmen to grow into it and allowing the freshmen to make mistakes. So I just think as we head into March, again, you're going to see some tweaks. And starting with this Ohio State game, I think there's going to be a lot more offensive sets that are going to be used that are different than just the transition and the flow into the pro style shapes and reads.
Now, you've been a coach. Let's just go inside the mindset of a coach. obviously if you can get out in transition and get easy baskets running the floor, there's not a whole lot to change. Like that is obviously your ideal scenario. That's what Lindsey Gottlieb's ideal scenario. She's made no secret of the idea that like USC's best when it pushes pace, gets a fast tempo. And again, we all know Juju Watkins' wheelhouse, get her in the open court, one-on-one. No one's going to stop her one-on-one. Too good, too physical, too strong near the rim. She's going to get whatever she wants in those open court one-on-one situations. But obviously, a long established truism of basketball, it's easier to slow down than speed up. From a defensive standpoint, Ohio State will try to slow this game down. Ohio State did a really good job of mucking it up against UCLA. That was one of UCLA's worst offensive games on Wednesday night. So take us inside the mindset of a coach in terms of when you rely on your concept, your framework, and when you then think you need to go to that grab bag and dig out a set play or two. What kind of guides the how and the when and the how often of balancing set plays versus giving your players freedom, which we know Lindsey Gottlieb wants to do?
Yeah, ultimately, it's going to depend on how they play against the Ohio State press. If USC comes out and they can break that press, then they're going to play transition ball all night. If Ohio State slows them down and is able to contain them within their pressure, and then they have to go to half-court offensive sets, then Lindsey's going to have to pull out her bag of tricks with some set offenses. So it's just predicated on how the team's feeling and how the team is going to react to Ohio State's press. So if it's going to be, if you beat it, okay, we're right in transition. If they contain us, then this is what we're going to do. If you don't have a read out of the press immediately, then we're going to pull it back and I'm going to call a set play. Or you can look at what the defense is playing and give TVO or Juju, the openness to say, hey, call play 5 or whatever it is that they're going to do. But if they come out of the press and they're doubling Juju, again, we're looking at the pro style shapes and reads. How are we going to do that? Are we going to do 4 out, 1 in? Are we going to do 3-2 with 2 posts? So it just depends on who's on the floor as well. But I can tell you, looking at the analytics, the best offensive team on the floor right now that plays together is Kaylee Heckel, Kennedy Smith, Kiki Ariafen, Juju Watkins, and Avery Howell. That team right there is the most efficient offensively, and they're the best offensive team that we have on the floor. So, and that would be more of a 4 out, 1 in type of setup. And that's good too, because it gives them more spacing. And I'm not saying that because, I'm a coach. I'm looking at what the analytics say.
Let's talk about Juju Watkins. Obviously, these last 3 games have not been her best offensive games. The shooting numbers aren't particularly good. But we've made this point before. This schedule right here, the games have been packed together, and that in the back of Juju's mind, that she's had this Ohio State UCLA double stack circled for a long time. And having these Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin games, in pretty rapid sequence right before it, it was a difficult spot, not just for Juju, for the whole team. That you have these huge games, but you have to slog through this one last Midwest road trip. And by the way, USC doesn't leave the Pacific time zone for the rest of the Big Ten regular season. There's a trip to Seattle, but the other 5 games coming up, they're all in Los Angeles, 4 at home and then 1 at Poly against UCLA. I have to think that part of the struggles are just like Juju's been waiting for these games, and you've had a high workload just in terms of games played. Now, obviously, she played just 26 minutes against Wisconsin, which we agree is really good, but there's just been one game after another this past week, and that's after having some long layoffs. So Juju has not had a consistent, steady rhythm as a result of the schedule. So how do you think she can get into the rhythm that she wants and that USC needs when we face Ohio State on Saturday?
Needs to meditate. She needs to meditate. With her and the entire team, what I noticed when they were playing with Wisconsin is they looked like they had fatigued legs. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of that has to do with the travel. And if you look at the scheduling that the Big Ten did, USC by far has done the most travel out of any other team to this point. Now UCLA is going to catch up because they still have one more road trip that they have to go to Iowa and Wisconsin as well. But to this point, USC schedule has been packed in with back-to-back games and then traveling every other week far away. So, I believe that the travel has really, really taken a toll on them. Not that they even know it, but physically and mentally, that travel wears on you. I remember just when I had to travel for work a lot, it wears on you. And after a while, you're just like, I just want to stay home. I want to be home. So they're young and I'm sure they're having a good time, but so they're not really understanding how fatigue can settle in. So I think with Juju, you have to remember as well, Juju has NIL deals. So I'm sure in between games and in between practices, she's fitting in things that she has to do with the people that are sponsoring her. So fatigue is really setting in, and I'm sure that from now until March, there's got to be a better balance in everything that's going on with her and the rest of the team, and the less travel will help that. But I just think fatigue right now is playing a major role, and meditation and rest and balance has to be first and foremost because you have to make the main thing to keep the NIL deals coming in.
I think one observation to make on the heels of that, and it's an excellent set of observations, CC, is that hopefully the people, Juju's inner circle, the people who, work with her on these NIL deals and everything, hopefully they're mindful of picking the right spots in which to give Juju more public front facing obligations with sponsors and everything. And so an example is like, I certainly hope she doesn't have any of these NIL obligations on the Thursday and the Friday before Ohio State, because there's been a 4-day break before the UCLA game. So like the Monday and the Tuesday between the Ohio State and the UCLA game, like that's when she should be doing like her other off-court obligations. But I sure hope that on the Thursday and Friday before Ohio State, she's resting because she needs
Yeah.
that. The team
Yeah.
needs that. So hopefully, like they're just picking the right spots to do the off-court stuff, which it's important, it matters, but obviously you want to do it at the right time. I don't know what the schedule is. I'm just saying. I think a lot of
Yeah.
people listening to this podcast are hoping that the schedule's being managed properly and that it isn't stepping on the toes of Juju's game preparation.
Well,
So,
yes, not stepping on the toes of Juju's greatness, right? Because first and
yes.
foremost, her love of the basketball game is more important than anything else, right? She loves the game of basketball and she loves her community. So I just think finding that balance, because you got to remember she has, school that she's got classes, she's got to study, she's got homework, basketball things, and so it's a lot. And remember, she's only 19. She's only 19. So I just think that balance is key for her physical as well as her mental.
Yep. Just one more point to make about Juju's off-court calendar, however it's arranged. And again, I don't know. I'm not making any statements about it. I'm just saying in terms of what would make sense. USC plays UCLA on the 13th. It plays then Michigan State, and then it plays Washington. So that's another packed area of the schedule. But then between the
And Illinois too.
Illinois game on February 23rd and then UCLA on March 1st, they're like going to be 5 days off between those two games. So once again, like there are times where to load up the off-court obligations, and there are times when you just need to rest for yourself and your basketball career. So anyway, hopefully the proper decisions are being made in terms of the timing that Juju Watkins tends to her very important off-court obligations.
Yeah.
Let's now go into Ohio State, and I think before we size up the matchup between USC and Ohio State, let's deal with what we saw Wednesday night. And we briefly alluded to it. Ohio State gave UCLA, unbeaten UCLA, a real battle. The game was tied at 44 early in the fourth quarter. The Bruins have not been pushed very often. Ohio State did push them before UCLA dominated the final 8 minutes of the game with its defense. To me, CC, just based on what happened between Ohio State and UCLA, like USC has to be ready to protect the ball. Like that to me, like that is numero uno against Ohio State's defense because it made UCLA's offense look very pedestrian for 3 quarters.
Yeah, and the one thing about Ohio State in that game is their shooting efficiency, right? They weren't really good at the 3-point line, for that game. They do shoot 32% from three, so they're not really that efficient from three, but they like to throw them up. Yeah, they're known for their press. That's what they're known for. They're known for their press and to disrupt. So their whole focus is going to be wanting to disrupt Juju. And now that they can scout, because when we played Ohio State last year, there was no scout on Juju. Now there's all types of information that you can find on YouTube, so many games you could watch to actually get a scout on how to play against USC. So, depending on if they follow the scout or how they scout Juju, I'm anxious to see if they're going to double Juju or double Kiki. Who's going to get doubled in this game, or is it going to be both out of the press? So that's going to be interesting to see. And if we could, they're not, Ohio State's not, they don't have a lot of size. So I think that we outsize them. But as far as athleticism, they have Jelani Cambridge, who's their all-star freshman, and she's the second leading scorer on the team. So, but that game against UCLA, yeah, they did catch UCLA off guard with their disruption, but they had no answer for Lauren Betts. So that's what kept UCLA in the game. Yeah, I
Uh,
think, yeah, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was going to say that's what kept UCLA in the game.
Absolutely. I mean, just hearing you, discuss Ohio State and particularly pointing to the Buckeyes' lack of size, that to me just reinforces the need to not turn over the ball because, sometimes the best offense is a missed shot. And like if you have size, which USC does, just
Yeah.
going on the glass, playing volleyball on the glass can be a legitimate offensive play. So as long as you're getting up shots, even if they're missing, you have the size, you have the length to be able to get on the backboard. So that just reinforces just don't turn it over, get shots off. Like this could work. And also, of course, not turning the ball over means you're not feeding Ohio State easy points as well. So is this a Rhea Marshall game? Is this a game where, she
Yeah.
played just 17 minutes against Wisconsin. So maybe this is the game meant for her against Ohio State.
Yeah, Rhea has to come ready to play this game. And then our bench again has to come ready to play. Ohio State's bench is averaging 15 points a game right now, so they have a decent bench. And they're going to push us to run. So we have to be physically ready to go. But yeah, Rhea has to be ready to play, and she has to be able to make the right reads. And if they do the high low, Rhea's going to have to be ready to pass out of that high to the wings or to Kiki down low. And I think that'll help us a lot if Rhea can come in and do this. If Clarice gets good minutes, which I hope she does because she played really well against Wisconsin, that'll be good for us because again, I still think that we need to get Clarice in there more and more to get her acclimated. So when we play UCLA, she has a big role guarding Lauren Betts off the bench.
Now, you know that Lindsey Gottlieb, Beth Burns, and the rest of the staff have been devouring that Ohio State UCLA game film, because both teams are next on USC's schedule, but also like those are the two other primary contenders for the Big Ten championship. And obviously there's going to be a likely meeting with one, if not both of those teams at the Big Ten tournament. So it's not just for this next week, but it's also for March as well. So that the USC staff is looking at that game film. Anything emerge for you in terms of, a line of attack, in terms of a one-on-one matchup in terms of a tendency or a statistical comparison that you think is going to be really worth watching for our USC basketball fan base against Ohio State?
Yeah, I'm really anxious to see who guards Jelani, because she's fast and she's good. And like I said, um she's averaging like 16 points a game right now, and she's their freshman guard. So I'm anxious to see who's gonna guard her. Is it gonna be Kennedy? Is it gonna be Jew? Or is it gonna be TVO? Which one of those three is gonna take Jelani Cambridge? And then, they present some mismatches for us because Cody McMahon, she's 6'1", but she's their leading scorer and she's mobile and she can drive to the hoop and she can shoot, her little mid-range within the paint. And she's thick, she's big, she's strong. So is Kiki going to guard her, and how are we going to manage defending against her? And then you have Chance Gray, who transferred from Oregon, who's having a good year shooting 3-point shots. Who's going to guard her? So I'm anxious to see the matchups and what the chess game is going to be, because this is definitely going to be a chess game.
One thing we talked about, CC, on our last podcast, and we talked about it on a general level. It was more about style of play. Talia von Oelhoffen coming over from Oregon State, a slow-paced offense, and now coming to USC, where Lindsey Gottlieb makes no secret about wanting to push pace. And so there are questions about TVO's fit in terms of style of play. But this is a little bit more specific. This is not style of play. This is more matchup. And you alluded to this, like who's going to be guarding various Ohio State players. Do you think Talia von Oelhoffen is a better speed defender or a better physical defender? And that might be a little simplistic because obviously you need both speed and physicality to a certain degree. But like, do you lean toward identifying TVO as more of a speed defender, the person who deals with a quick guard, or the person who, can perhaps has to be guarding someone who's not quite as fast, a little more powerful, she can stand up physically. How would you characterize TVO as a defender and how that might relate to the assignment that she gets against Ohio State?
She's more of a physical defender. She's aggressive, on the ball, but she's not as fast as some of the other folks on our team. So she's more physical when she plays defense, and so that's what I'd say about TVO. So I'm just interested to see who's gonna guard her. Then they also have Asia Petty, who plays the 4 or 5. So I mean they have a really good team, and it's gonna pose matchup problems for us because of their size and length, so and speed. But that Jelani Cambridge, that's the one I'm really interested in seeing.
A brief word about Juju Watkins on defense. I mean, obviously, we're very aware that one of the things that makes Juju Watkins great is that she can have that bad shooting night. She can shoot 7 of 24 as she did against Minnesota, but she's going to be playing defense. She's going to be rebounding. She's going to be helping out her teammates at that end of the floor. It's why she's a winner. But do you think that Lindsey Gottlieb needs to think a little bit more consciously and intentionally in this Ohio State game about trying to give Juju Watkins just a little bit of defensive relief? Maybe you give Kennedy Smith the tougher defensive assignment in the hopes that that little degree of difference frees up Juju Watkins mentally a little bit more at the offensive end. Do you try to tweak that, or do you say, Juju, you're my thoroughbred, you're my super duper star, I'm just going to give you the full workload for this huge game? How do you come at that question?
I don't think it matters because I think Juju's going to come out and want to play regardless because that's just the competitor that she is. Knowing Juju, she's going to want to guard Jelani. Will she? I don't think so. I think that she might guard Taylor Theory. That's my thought. Or maybe Kennedy will. I don't know. That's what I said. The matchups are really weird, but I don't think you tell Juju, no, don't go do this, or lay off a little bit on defense. I think because of the competitor that she is, she's going to want to play both ends of the floor tomorrow, because I still think in Juju's mind, she hasn't had that perfect game. She's still searching for that perfect game where she played well on offense and defense. So she still wants to put it all together. And this is Ohio State. Ohio State is coming to beat us because we beat them last year when they were ranked, and we surprised everybody and went in to Las Vegas and beat them. So, their whole thing, they have everybody returning except for one player. They're going to want to come out and beat us. So I don't think you're going to see anybody on our team not want to give 100% or kind of lay off a little bit on defense or offense. I think this is going to be a game. We're at home where they're going to come out and they're going to play hard.
All right. One thing I often think about before a big game is, where does this game need to be? And in terms of numbers, Ohio State UCLA was a 65-52 UCLA game. So that game was essentially played in the 50s. The total points scored 117. So that averages out into, a game played in the upper 50s. USC, is very much at home and comfortable playing a game in the 80s, but Ohio State just lost a rock fight in the 50s against UCLA, and obviously, if USC holds Ohio State to 52 the way UCLA did, I'm pretty sure USC fans and that coaching staff would take it. But I put it to you, CC. Does this game need to be in the 70s? Does it matter where this game is played? Like, do you have a strong lean, or is it, what, USC can win a track meet, USC can win a rock fight. It's just a matter of grinding out a few extra possessions and just being better on the day. Any particular strong leaning from your vantage point?
Yeah, I don't think USC wants this to be a track meet. I think their whole objective is to slow Ohio State down with their press or with our press, to slow them down and make them do their half court offense, because they too are a transition team. And the last thing, that they want, if Chance Gray gets hot, that's not good for us. So I think that we need to be in the 70s to win this game. And I think that we need to be able to press them and have our press work and, mess what they want to do up offensively, kind of disrupt them. But yeah, if we're in the 70s, we should win the game as long as we play good defense. I think one of the reasons why Ohio State didn't score that many points against UCLA like they normally do is because Chance Gray, who's their sniper, wasn't efficient at all. I mean, I think she only hit one 3-point shot or 2 3-point shots, and that's their sniper. So we can't let her get hot. We have to contain three people. We have to contain Jelani. We have to contain Cody McMahon, and we have to contain Chance Gray. We have to contain them. So the most important thing is containing them. And then once again, our perimeter defense, because they're fast and they're going to try dribble drive, which they know is our weakness right now. I'm sure they're doing a scout. And so that's one of our weaknesses. So they're going to try and take advantage of that. So we have to mentally be prepared defensively for that dribble drive offense by making sure that we have help there in the paint.
Was going to ask about that. You have mentioned that the dribble drive defense has not been where it needed to be, certainly not against Iowa. It was inconsistent against Maryland, and this is really my question to you, CC. Late in that Maryland game, we saw Rhea Marshall, come up with the big block shots, deterring at the rim. Any thought to, not necessarily doing a traditional man-to-man defense, but like having maybe four defenders playing man, but just making sure that Rhea is planted in the middle of the paint, so that that Ohio State cannot draw her out 15 feet from the basket, and that she's always there. Is there something USC can do to make sure that Rhea Marshall's not drawn away from the basket, so that if a perimeter defender is beaten on the dribble, Rhea's there to deter and stop at the rim? Any thoughts on what USC can do?
That's what they do now. Rhea, if her offensive player's out on the wing, she still sags in the paint, and so does Kiki. The problem is they're not keeping their eyes on the rim, the ball, and their player, and they have to be able to do that. And so what happens is when the dribble drive comes and they come over to help, they're helping too late. So they're already there. They just have to pay attention to the ball movement a little bit better so they can get to that help spot in time. If they can do that, we'll be okay. But that's what's happening right now is they're in the right positioning, but they're not helping on time within the paint.
That could be a product of the accumulated fatigue from all the travel that's
Yep.
been going on. So hopefully, like if this is a mentally fresh team, we won't see as many of those lapses against Ohio State. That obviously plays into the right scenario for USC. All right, CC, winding down the show, we usually wind up doing a statistical benchmark of some kind. You know, if USC can hit this target or it can prevent Ohio State from hitting a specific target, you know, it's a lot more likely to win this game. CC Clay, what is your main statistical benchmark, either for USC or that matter for Ohio State in this game?
I think if we turn Ohio State over at a minimum of 15 times this game, we'll win the game. The other key statistic that I want to talk about that we have to be good at is rebounding. We haven't been rebounding very good lately. Our last two games, Iowa out rebounded us and Wisconsin out rebounded us of all teams. So we have to be better rebounding, which means that we need to box out and we need to make sure that we're being aggressive on the boards on both sides of the court, defensively and offensively. So I would say rebounding is important in this game, and turnovers. So we need to turn them over 15 times and we need to stay below 10 on ours.
If I was going to come up with a statistical benchmark, I wouldn't have done it any differently. Like that, to me, turnovers are the epicenter of this game. And if USC comes out several on the plus side, number one indicator in terms of who's likely to win this game. All right, CC, let's
Yeah.
talk about your YouTube channel. Let's talk USC women's basketball, what you have planned for your Ohio State coverage. Let's just set the table for CC's YouTube channel.
Yeah, I will be posting a press conference after the game on the YouTube channel, and then I will do a recap the following day with some play breakdowns. So look forward to doing that, and can't wait for this game Saturday night. It's going to be special, and it's going to say a lot. You know, it's going to say a lot about our team because this whether you want to believe it or not is a must-win game.
It is a must-win game. If USC loses, it falls 2 games behind UCLA, not where the Trojans want to be. And you're going to be at the Galen Center, so you know have an absolutely fantastic time. And of course, if USC wins, that is having a fantastic time. CC
Yes.
Clay, thank you for once again joining us. And for those listening to our podcast, first off, this Ohio State game, it's on Fox. So it's not on Peacock, not on a streaming outlet. It's on Fox Sports. Very easy to find. But also
Time too.
that's
Prime
right.
time.
That's right. It's a 6 o'clock in LA, and CC's going to be there. So go to CC's YouTube channel. Let's talk USC women's basketball. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, share with friends. That's the 3-point plan. Subscribe, and share. So CC Clay, we will talk to you after the Ohio State game. Thanks again for joining us on our
Wait, I have a
podcast.
question. I have a question before we get off. I had a comment on my YouTube session if we were going to do live call-ins. So we have to think about that for one of these games because people are interested in a live call-in. So you've done them before. I've never done them. So we got to figure that out.
We will try to figure it out because we would like to facilitate that. It could be that you know, with your YouTube channel, we can just go through like the YouTube chat
Oh,
window.
yeah, do a live.
Maybe that's the possible angle that we could do, but we would like to figure it out. Absolutely. So for people listening to this
Yeah.
show, you want more content and you want live shows after some of the bigger games, we're definitely interested in pursuing that for sure. So
Yeah, maybe we'll do a live show after the UCLA game.
absolutely. Well, you and I can talk about that, but in the meantime, folks, get on over to CC's YouTube channel. Let's talk USC women's basketball. Like, subscribe, share. CC, we will talk to you after the Ohio State game. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir. Fight on.